This module is a continuation of Section 4, covering the HOPWA Code of Federal Regulations. HOPWA funds may be used to assist in all forms of housing designed to prevent homelessness, including emergency housing, shared housing arrangements, apartments, single-room occupancy dwellings, and community residences. Appropriate support services must be provided as part of any HOPWA-assisted housing, but HOPWA funds may also be used to provide services independently of any housing activity. Let's take a closer look at some of those activities permitted under HOPWA funding. This slide shows some of the activities that may be carried out through the use of HOPWA funds. They include the provision of housing information, identifying resources to establish, coordinate, and develop housing assistance resources for eligible persons, acquisition and rehabilitation, conversion, lease, and repair of facilities to provide housing services, new construction, project or tenant-based rental assistance, short-term rent, mortgage, and utility payments, supportive services, operating costs, technical assistance, and administrative expenses. As mentioned, supportive services is an activity that may be carried out using HOPWA funds. Some support services include, but are not limited to, health, mental health, assessment, permanent housing placement, drug and alcohol abuse treatment and counseling, daycare, personal assistance, nutritional services, intensive care when required, and access to local, state, and federal government benefits and services. Health services may only be provided to individuals living with HIV or AIDS and not to family members of these individuals. All grantees using grant funds to provide housing must adhere to various standards. Let's take a look at a few of them. For any HOPWA recipient requiring more intensive care that can be provided in housing assistance under this subpart, the grantee shall provide for locating a care provider who can appropriately care for the individual and for referring the individual to the care provider. Housing quality standards, resident rent payment, and termination of assistance are also included as part of general standards for eligible housing activities. Each recipient of assistance under the housing quality standards must be provided safe and sanitary housing that is in compliance with all applicable state and local housing codes. Furthermore, except for persons in short-term supported housing, each person receiving rental assistance or residing in any rental housing assisted under this program must pay rent, including utilities, an amount which is the higher of 30% of monthly adjusted income, 10% of the family's monthly gross income, or welfare payment specifically designated to meet housing costs. With respect to the surviving member or members of a family who were living in a unit assisted under the HOPWA program with the person with AIDS at the time of his or her death, housing assistance and supportive services under the HOPWA program shall continue for a grace period following the death of the person with AIDS. The grantee or project sponsor shall establish a reasonable grace period for continued participation for a surviving family member, but that period may not exceed 1 year from the death of the family member with AIDS. The grantee or project sponsor shall notify the family of the duration of their grace period and may assist the family with information on other available housing programs and with moving expenses. We've just reviewed some of the standards grantees must adhere to, but we encourage you to visit the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations for HOPWA to get a more comprehensive view of these standards. If you visit the reference tab on this website, you will find the link to the needed resource. There are also standards to take into account when looking at short-term supplemental housing and community residences, and it's important to differentiate between the two. Short-term supported housing includes providing temporary shelter to eligible individuals as well as rent, mortgage, and utility payments. If grant funds are used to provide this type of assistance, the following standards apply: time limits, residency limitations, assistance to continue independent living, and case management. A community residence is a multi-unit residence designed for eligible persons to provide a lower-cost residential alternative to institutional care, to prevent or delay the need for such care, to provide a permanent or transitional residential setting, and to enable such persons to participate as fully as possible in community life. Additional information can be found in the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations for HOPWA. This concludes Section 5 of Module 1. Before moving on to Section 6, Take the time to complete the corresponding activity.